Good afternoon, Tony Dottino, founder of the USA Memory Championship. As you can see, it's a little bit cooler here in Windermere, Florida than it has been. And we're on the tail end of this cold wave that's kind of swept the northeast and southeast of the United States. But I continue to do my reading, and I found a very interesting and worthwhile article in the Men's Health Advisor put out in December by the Cleveland Clinic. And it talked about finding your focus to spark your memory. And I thought it was it had a couple of really good suggestions as to, with all of the stresses, news, children, activities going on, the multitasking in family lives, the news reports, different activities that we're engaged in. We have this notion that multitasking is something we are capable of doing and doing everything well, when in fact the science would continue to suggest that multitasking helps you to do several things wrong. And so with the stresses and distractions of today's environment, it's easy to understand that the factors that go about our day-to-day lives can shorten our span and minimize our focus on something that we are trying to do as we go about walking into a room, for example, and thinking about why we went into the room, and then have two other things going on, somebody calling us, maybe a phone ringing, maybe something you're listening to on the radio or TV, and it leads to a significant issue of concentration and staying focused on what your intentions were, what your initial purpose was in walking into the room, or what you were looking for, or something you were doing, or a phone number of somebody you were reaching for the phone to call. And so I thought this article talked about it's common for people to experience these problems, and it's not anything to get in a panic about, but to take a step back and give yourself a chance to know that our attention and working memory, as we divert our thinking into multiple directions, can get us into trouble a little bit. And I found it very interesting in the data that they had here. And I want to get that data because I found it extremely interesting. When as they also analyze as we get a little bit older, that some of our attention can be diverted. And so what they were saying here is attention problems and stress and anxiety, not having the right sleep, or focusing on our smartphones can get us into trouble. So studies of children and adults determine that the time that people maintained in the zone where you were focused was 30 seconds. The average attention span was nearly 30 seconds for children, 76 seconds for young adults, and 67 seconds for older adults. Your ability to fluctuate based on a variety of factors, like if you haven't slept, you're hungry, dehydrated, stressed out, your focus can falter. So there are reasons for it that are rational, logical, and a reason not to go into panic. So here are some tips. Excuse me. Here are some tips that they recommend that I thought were really excellent. First one is easy, obviously, avoid multitasking, especially if one of the tasks that you're doing requires your full concentration. So therefore, if you need full concentration to something you're doing and it's not in automatic robot control, as I call it, then you obviously are going to divert your attention from the robot control, or the lack of thereof, to something else. And so avoid multitasking, especially if the task requires significant concentration. How about staying off the smartphone or shutting it down and removing a source of distraction? And boy, that is tough. I see so many people today walking on the street, and I sure hope nobody's ever going to get run over, walking into a crossing zone, looking at their iPhones, or doing something that is going to get them hurt or into trouble. Driving a car, right? We talk about driving a car and not looking at your iPhone and dialing someone, or even talking to someone while you're trying to drive your car in a busy traffic jam or traffic situation. Uh, Visualize and verbalize information as you're hearing it or as you're seeing, as you're try to stop and visualize something. If you're talking about somebody on the phone, try to visualize what they look like. Try to visualize a topic they're talking about other people, so that you stay in that mode of concentration. You stay in that mode of priority. Certainly it's easy, a tip to break large information into smaller chunks. Taking a phone number and breaking it into 3 distinct pieces and being focused on each of those pieces. It's one of our memory skills that we mental athletes use in the memory competition, of breaking down numbers and not trying to remember a string of 25 numbers in a string of 25, but breaking them into strings of maybe 3 to 5 and creating little stories about each of those strings of numbers that allow you to then again stay focused and build visualization and imagery. How about doing some word associations or try to relate new information to something you already know? We call that associations, meaning take something you know and link new information to it and make some links and connections to it and build those associations. Outsource the things, like we're talking about iPhones, right? Outsource the things on your mind, like calendars, write down information on God. I get calendars at this time of the year, and I put one on the fridge, and I write important dates or things on the calendar. So I'm still a visual. Writing things down on a paper calendar is still within my realm of things I do, and it helps me on a monthly basis to look at my whole calendar at one shot and what I've written on it and know what I've got coming up for the month. And once in a while, I'll flip the calendar page and see what's coming up in the next month, so I stay focused on the things that are important, appointments that I have, things I need to do. Sleep problems, being stressed, not sleeping well, being tired the next day, all cause our cognitive functions to kind of divert itself and lose our attention, lose our concentration, and then get us into a little bit of trouble as we go do that. Sometimes verbalizing the task that you're doing with the intention of what you're doing. I'm walking into this room to find my checkbook. I'm walking into the garage to get my set of keys, or I'm walking into the refrigerator to get out a piece of fruit or get something out for dinner. So verbalizing, I thought it was a good tip they had in the article that was really helpful. And therefore, verbalizing things, where you have to focus on your speech as well as the act of what you're doing. We have a capacity to focus, but there are so many things today that pull us in different directions, all at the same time. And if we can only keep our minds to get one thing done, now let's get one thing accomplished before we try to worry about items 2, 3, and 4. And we get that complete, and then we can move on to item 2, and then eventually 3 and 4. You get them all done well in totality, is a lot better than getting 2 or 3 things done inefficiently. We have this capacity. We have the ability to focus regardless of our age. It's just that as we get a little bit older, it demands a little bit more of concentration and a little bit more of saying, okay, I'm not going to allow multiple distractions creep into my thinking, creep into my sight, creep into my list of priorities. I'm going to take them off. And then one thing you can always do, it's okay to write things down and put them on a piece of paper, so you don't forget the things that are important to you and that you're accomplishing and trying to do. I thought this was a great article. It's in the Men's Health Advisor, the December issue of Cleveland Clinic. I thought they had some good tips on how we can spark our memory and keep our attention to doing the things that are important to us. And I hope it gets I'll hope it's planning to get a little bit warmer here, and looking forward to the next couple of days when the temperature goes back up at least to the mid-70s, and I'm not walking around in a heavy shirt anymore.